Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Before I get into the video, I'd like to say a massive thank you for the success of last week's video, as it was the first video of mine to hit 1,000 views or more, now stacking on about 2,000. Here's to hoping we can somehow see even more in the future. Anyway, let's get into this video. Today I'll be discussing 5 cool concepts or ideas that I have for Age of Calamity, and let me tell you, it was hard to pick 5 with all of the crazy ideas I had in my head. Anyway, if you enjoy Zelda content, then please subscribe for weekly content, and let's jump into the video. We've seen Hyrule Castle's king very few times in the Legend of Zelda series. One of the most notable was Wind Waker, and weirdly enough, the other most notable was probably Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, the king disguises himself as an old man. He is eventually known to be the king as he reveals himself to Link to tell him the story of what happened 100 years ago. Something that we've never really seen in the series though is how the king would actually fight. And, well, we actually kind of got to see that in Hyrule Warriors 1, in the Definitive Edition, the Switch version, whichever one, whatever you want to call it, right? We got to see that, and it actually, I think the king has a giant level when you first get him, level 40 or something. I could be wrong with that. Enough rambling. The king played really well, and he actually had some pretty damn cool moves. So, a really cool idea that I think would be amazing to see in Age of Calamity would be the king fighting through Hyrule Castle, before eventually taking his fall to something like a Guardian, or maybe even the Lionel scene in Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild. I think that would be a really cool little add of, lore, I guess. Especially since we actually don't really know how the king died. If I'm wrong with that, then please do let me know in the comments, but without any research right this second, I think that there's no reason that we know of that the king died. So, with that said, going through the castle as the king, fighting all these different enemies, bokoblins, moblins, all this stuff, would be amazing if it all culminated to the king's death, as he slowly dies trying to save his own castle. And after all, Calamity Ganon did rise from the bottom of Hyrule Castle. Maybe he was the first to actually get into a fight with the Calamity. But I guess maybe that's all wrong. I honestly don't know. The thing is as well, the king was a very underplayed role in Breath of the Wild story. The only thing he really did was tell Zelda that she needs to be good enough to kill the Calamity. And eventually, she does actually end up being that good. But it would be cool to see, how badass the king actually is. As we could actually see the inside of the castle in Hyrule Warriors, as it was seen in the concept art for Breath of the Wild in Masterworks, or Creating a Champion, whichever book, you're from. So I think that fighting everything in the halls of Hyrule Castle and a restored Hyrule Castle as the king would make for an interesting story, to say the least. Maybe it could just be like a little side thing that you do after the main story. But I guess we'll have to see till the game comes out. Let's go on to the next one. This is something that I've actually seen playing around on Twitter as the days have gone by since the reveal of Age of Calamity. We all know that at the end of Breath of the Wild, Link dies due to his fatigue, and then Zelda saves his life and he dies because of his fatigue and I guess his wounds from other enemies. So, with that said, how could a final ending to Age of Calamity actually play out? I think that the last mission playing as Link could be in a wave format until you die. I've actually seen this little concept thing going around on Twitter. I don't know if I'm able to find the photo of it, so I can't really give credits for it. But I'll try and find out, so it'll be on screen right now. It says survive, while Link is standing right next to a load of Guardians, like 8 or 10 Guardians, and eventually those waves would drop off, and the Guardians would eventually kill Link. Or at least the cutscene from Breath of the Wild 1 would play, where Zelda saves Link's life and then he would die. So that is a possibility, and I feel like that would make for a really interesting final battle. But again, we'll have to see. I kind of want to see how Age of Calamity fits in with Breath of the Wild's lore, as it seems they could retcon a lot of things. So, on to the next one, I guess. Really quick thing, if you guys have any ideas, then please put them in the comments, as I love to read all your comments about stuff like this. Engagement with you guys is always kind of my main priority. I think I respond to 90% of comments as long as they're respondable. Now this is a bit of a far-fetched one, and even looking at this, I think it's still far-fetched, and even researching it slightly, I still think it's far-fetched. But it's a really cool idea, and this is kind of what this video is for. It's more for speculation. But being able to control the Divine Beasts. We know that we can control the champions in the next game, or at least we pretty much have pretty damn hard evidence that we will be able to control all of the champions in the next game. Revali, Daruk, Urbosa, and Mipha. Which means, theoretically, should we not be able to control the Divine Beasts? If we were to control the Divine Beasts, surely we'd be able to use their lasers and stuff to kill hordes of enemies. Or maybe this would be like a Call of Duty type deal. I know this is kind of weird, but you know, you call in your missile, or in this case your laser, and it kills off a horde of enemies. It's a cool little idea, but the coolest thing about this idea is the fact that you might be able to walk over Breath of the Wild's map to get into certain areas. Now, I know that Hyrule Warriors is not that kind of gameplay, okay? This, again, is just a really cool idea that I really want to see. Hyrule Warriors is mostly compact into certain areas of the map, and I guess that's how it will always be. But I guess I can still speculate on this stuff, and, I mean, it doesn't seem that far-fetched. It would just be, like, loading screens could be walking around in Divine Beasts. That'd be cool. Something else that I really loved in the first Hyrule Warriors game was the adventure mode. You'd finish your legend mode, which was basically your story mode in that game, and you'd have about 20 hours or so in the game, if you'd not, like, you know, 100% complete the legend mode. So, you go over to the adventure mode to see what's going on with it, and I kid you not, I've easily put in another 25 hours to the adventure mode. I love it so much. Like, I know a lot of people don't enjoy grindy games, you know, games where you spend 50 hours playing it, and you get most of your stuff. But I think the Age of Calamity's map system, your adventure mode, could work very similar to the first games. In the first games, you go through like the Legend of Zelda 1 map and some other maps as well that the developers decided to put in the definitive edition. These maps you'll spend genuinely hours on those maps. Now think about that but on a massive scale, like Breath of the Wild's map. Imagine going through hordes of enemies in Breath of the Wild's map through that little system that they use in the definitive edition of Hyrule Warriors and in the normal game. I think that would be amazing, and it would add easily 100 hours to the game. I think the adventure mode is more of a staple in the Warriors series, so I think there's a 99% chance that we'll already see it, because I don't think they'll want this Hyrule Warriors game to be easy to like 100%. I think you can probably spend a good 100 hours on the game, 200 hours if you try. So I guess that's a definite possibility, and I think it's a really cool concept that we could see in Age of Calamity. Now this is something that I've seen fly around quite a lot since the reveal of Age of Calamity. In every single Warriors game, even the first Hyrule Warriors game, you can play as the enemy after finishing the main story. This is a really cool idea because obviously you can see everybody's sides of the story. You can see in the first games, you can see Ganon's side of the story, how he comes back to life and then he goes and wrecks and just completely just takes havoc on everything. So I've seen a lot of people talking about how that could be implemented in Age of Calamity. And who are the biggest enemies in Breath of the Wild, like humans wise? The Yiga. I think that there is a huge possibility that we could play as like a Yiga foot soldier in an enemy sort of like ending to Age of Calamity. I feel like that's definitely a possibility, as every single Warriors game has had some sort of similar thing. But a cooler idea in itself would be that we play as the Blight Ganons, so that we get to kill like Rivali, Daruk, Urbosa, and Mipha. I feel like that would be so cool. Think about how you could use your laser to just shoot Rivali or whatever. It would finally get that itch out of me to finally shoot Rivali. Plus, these bosses could have like giant health bars, and I feel like the Blight Ganons are probably already going to be bosses that finish off the champions. Even though that is going to be some scenes that I don't want to see. But maybe we could play as Bokoblins. Smaller enemies, but everyone knows them, and you can play them, and it would be amazing. Imagine how cool it would be to play as a Bokoblin. Bokoblins are both the weirdest, most disgusting, and cutest enemies in the Zelda series. So seeing these in its Breath of the Wild form, being able to play as them, would be so cool. Or playing as a Moblin, but I mean, the speculation is going a bit too far if we're thinking about all that stuff. So, I'm going to end that there. I do have one sort of honourable mention, and that is that we could use something like the Master Cycle Zero. But the reason why I didn't put it in my main list is because I don't think they'll include DLC things in it, apart from obviously the True Splendor Master Sword. So I don't really think we'll see anything like that. But going around in the rest of Hyrule Fields on the Master Cycle Zero, so that you can actually get around the map slightly quicker, would be kind of cool. And I guess it could be unlockable through the adventure mode, if they do have an adventure mode in the game, and it's like Breath of the Wild's map. You'll be able to go through all of the Divine Beasts and everything. So, yeah, I guess I should probably get over to the outro. With all 5 ideas or concepts talked about, I guess that's all the time we have in this particular video. Let me know some of your wacky cool ideas for Age of Calamity in the comments, and I have one last thing to say. Thank you so much for 300 subscribers. I love making stuff for all of you, and I'll continue to until the demand is no longer there. With that said, please like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more weekly Zelda content. In fact, next week we have a special video, as the next trailer for Age of Calamity should be dropping, so stay tuned. To stay in the loop, check out my Twitch channel in the description. There's even a chance that I'm streaming the Mario collection right now, so please do go and check it out. As usual, my social media is on screen and in the description right now, and please do go and donate to my Patreon if you can and really want to. There is actually one person that's just started pledging money. They're on screen right now. Thank you so much for pledging the money. I really do appreciate it. The link for my Patreon is in the description. I hope you all enjoyed, stay safe, and I'll see you all next week after the next Nintendo trailer for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.